Welcome, everyone, to Project Perspectives. I'm Sarah, that's Carol, and
Hello.
we are going to be covering a variety of topics on this channel. But today we're going to be talking about psychic vanity. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol and let her explain how we got to that topic.
Yeah, that was interesting. Vanity, right? What does that word mean, right? Vanity, we think of vain.
Yes, physical vanity, right?
Yeah.
I'm
But
so
some
pretty.
yeah, I don't think that's what that meant though. And that was what was really interesting was because sometimes I don't know what we're going to talk about and it's like, do you feel inspired to have a topic? And so one morning I heard vanity and psychic abilities. And of course immediately I go, well, what does that mean? And that when the words are interesting, like vanity is not a word I would use for myself. That's always a trigger for me that spirit is telling me something because it uses a word that I wouldn't normally use. So when I
Right.
heard vanity and psychic abilities, I went, I don't really understand what they're talking about. So I immediately ran to the computer because that's where I like to type out. And I thought, okay, let me hear what spirit has to say. And they basically gave me a paragraph on what vanity and psychic abilities really means. And I think we're going to talk about that today. And honestly, I don't know when you heard it, what first popped into your mind before I shared what spirit had to say?
So when you first said psychic vanity, I was like, how how does that apply to me?
Oh, okay.
Where have I been maybe guilty of that? So
Right.
I was
Because we
kind
all
of like,
are.
yeah. So I was like, oh, let's see, what does psychic vanity mean? Like, what are they talking about exactly? And then I guess I kind of broke it down to, at least in my opinion, it's holding power over someone or thinking that you're better than someone, um, for being psychic, which isn't the case. So, I don't know. It's an interesting topic, but unfortunately, it's kind of a there's a lot of people that suffer from it. Let's put it that way in this community, and they like to take advantage of others with it. So I think it's a good topic to cover.
Yeah, it was
Um,
interesting when I mentioned it to you and you said, well, because you had said, oh, let me think about it for a couple of days. And then you did, and you really came up with some of the exact same things that I had written down as well. So I was really, I thought, oh, that's so cool. She came up with a lot of the same stuff. So we're talking about it and you're right. It's how we use our abilities poorly. But I think also what's really important to realize is because a lot of times people are watching these videos and they go, well, I want to learn how to develop my own psychic abilities, right? And so that's really what this is. And that's really what I'm going to share this insight that came from spirit is that if we want to activate our psychic abilities, there's some things we need to remember. And vanity is the opposite of an activator. It's actually a deactivator, right?
right.
It makes it not that we can't be psychic, but I think it limits our power. It limits our abilities. And I think that was a part of what, was kind of coming through in this message. So anyway,
Right.
so I have the paragraph here that I had typed up, and for those that are watching, it's actually typed up in the show notes. So feel free to read along, and you can look down below. But what we're going to do, if you're just listening instead of reading, is I'm going to read this, and then we're going to kind of break it down, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So sound good? Are we
Yes,
ready?
ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to read this whole thing and then we're going to break it down and we're going to go from there, okay? So, here was the reply. We tend to think of the self as the sole source of psychic information and as the one who initiates the psychic process. However, if we can see that the real psychic process begins with our connection to something and or someone greater than ourselves, then we rise to a place of greater clarity and sensitivities. It's when we desire something for others that the process truly begins to emerge. That's not to say that we can't have psychic clarity for ourselves, but rather the overall process of being psychic isn't meant to predict, tell, or even eradicate a problem. It's to enlighten, uplift, communicate, and reflect back to someone that which they need or that we need for ourselves. The desire is not born of vanity, but rather of care, compassion, empathy, and a desire to serve others. This lack of vanity supports, and that was in capital letters, this lack of vanity supports and even initiates the psychic process because it's coming from a place of love, service, and unity. Vanity is not unity. It is self-serving and can inhibit the psychic development process and even harm the psychic interactions we have with others. So
Absolutely.
I loved this. And it's, when I receive these, to me, it's truly a reception. It's like, this is not coming from my mind. Folks, I'm not this smart. Okay. So when I got this, I just fell in love with it. And I went, it's so beautiful, because not only is it talking about the harms of it, but it's really giving you key factors into how you can activate your abilities. They're telling you right here. So if we back it up and we go, we tend to think of the soul self as the source of information, as the one who initiates the psychic process. So what does that say to you? I mean, does anything stand out? What's that?
Ego. That's ego. So when you're doing it from a place of self, and that means you think you're the one that came up with that, right? It means you think you're that smart all on your own, not that you got that information from another source. That's what that is. That's ego.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you're kind of like I'm psychic, so I'm amazing, right? It's my power, and we are using our power. I'm not negating that we're using our own psychic power.
Right.
But we need to realize that there's another component that comes into that. So that's kind of the part. And it says, we tend to think of the self as the sole source of information and as the one who initiates the psychic process. So I thought that was really interesting, because in a way we do initiate the process. We set the intention. I want to be psychic. I want that. But the process involves other aspects. We are not the only component in being psychic. It involves the sitter, it involves spirit, it involves whatever it is that we're connecting with. So I thought that was kind of interesting to realize that this whole psychic process relies on more than just us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that takes the vanity out of it. So any thoughts about that before I move to the next sentence? Does that one?
I guess it is interesting about the initiation part, because I do feel like on some levels we set the initiation to connect to spirit, but then are we not inspired to do that, which is where the inspiration comes from anyways, is from spirit. So that was that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, that's right. Right. I mean, we have that urge, we have that desire. Were we inspired for that? I mean, is it a personal interest? That's a good point as well. Yeah. So the next sentence simply says, however, if we can see that the real process begins with our connection to something or someone greater than ourselves, then we rise to a place of greater clarity and sensitivity. So basically, the whole point of being psychic is that it is about connecting with something beyond ourselves, something greater than ourselves. And from that awareness, from getting out of ourself and thinking that we're in control of that, from feeling that we are the single source, we're enhancing how clear the signal is and how much better our psychic abilities are going to be. So this is all about not having that point of vanity again, right?
Right. Yeah, I would definitely say that when you're reaching for information like that, it's not the same as coming up with it on your own. Like you just talked about with the letter that you got, I'm not that smart.
Right, exactly. No, there was no way. I'm like, you're going to have to tell me what vanity and psychic abilities means. That's right. And I could have never gotten this if I was not willing to detach my ego, right? To detach my vanity and allow that clarity from some greater source to come through. Never would have happened.
Right. I think also it's interesting to note that when you ask questions, they're not always the answers that you want.
Exactly.
So, yeah. therefore.
Or they catch you off guard, or the language is different. Like I said, I would have never used the word vanity myself. So that was a real catch to me. Okay, that's coming from something else.
Definitely.
But so just, if you're listening or you're reading this, I think it's ponder what they're really saying here. Ponder what spirit has shared here and how that works for you, because we can break it down and what it means to us. But ideally, it's what does this information mean for you? And kind of like you said, you questioned yourself, where's my ego? And I had to do the same thing. And when we get to some of these points, I'll be going to be honest and say, okay, I do that. Because we're all guilty, and that's okay. Yeah. So then the next step goes, when we desire something for others, that's when the process truly begins to emerge. And it's not that we can't have something for ourselves, because it even says that. That's not to say that we can't have clarity for ourselves. But the overall process of being psychic, and I love this because we've talked about predicting and fortune telling before, right? We're not predicting, we're not telling people what to do, and we're not there to solve their problems. And I think that's what a lot of people think. Oh, if you're psychic, you're going to tell me exactly how to fix this and this and this and this. You still have to do the work. You're still in control of your future. You get to make choices. You have willpower. But when we move into that place of, and they talk about enlighten, uplift, communicate, and reflect back, those should be our intentions. Those are the 4 intentions right there that would activate your psychic abilities.
Right.
I mean, are they missing anything? What's coming up for you there?
Well, I think it's important to question oneself about why is it that you want to become psychic? Maybe that's the deal. Or why is it that you want to use these abilities? For me, when I started to connect with people on the other side, it was an inspiration to help these people that are earthbound that couldn't figure it out how to get to the other side. They needed help. They needed someone to listen, or just someone to hear their story. That's really what inspired me to do this work, was to cross people over. That was kind of my whole catalyst. And so, kind of check yourself. Why is it that you want to be psychic? Is it because you think you want to become rich off of doing readings, or is it because you want to be able to show off in front of your friends about, how cool you look? So, check why. I think it's the inspiration comes from why. Why do you want to do it?
And that's true. And we're going to talk about that more. Yeah. And because that's part of the vanity. You're right. So so when you started wanting to do your work, it was about enlightening, uplifting, communicating, and or reflecting back, right? I mean, you were uplifting the spirits that you wanted to assist. You were coming from that place of service. And so that creates a greater connection. And the same is true whether you're doing it with a person here, or whether you're connecting with a spirit. So again, just kind of as you're reading, I want people to think about these things, because those are activators. Those are things that kick your psychic abilities on because you're in the right frame of mind.
Right.
And so they talk about that desire is not born of vanity, but it comes from care. You cared, you had compassion, you had empathy, and you had that desire to serve, right? And those are huge activators for the abilities. And so we need to remember those.
Well, it sets you off at a higher vibration anyways, right? Because now you're from service from service to self to service to others,
Yep. And, and I think too, a lot of it is intention. You always talk a lot about manifestation and intention, but you're having a very different intention there, right? Like you said, it has a higher vibration to it, but the intention is more unifying. And when you have a unifying higher intention, it's like the universe supports that.
Yes.
Far more than it does when you have this self-serving intention. It's not that the universe doesn't support that, because it can.
Right.
But the power levels on those can be very, very different, as you know from your work. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, a negative intention for psychic abilities does work, but it also has a lot of backfiring qualities to it as well.
Yep.
And a lot of limitations. So
That's
So when
another
we,
subject.
yeah, that's another subject for another time. Yeah, but it's just kind of important to note that. So when we take a look of this lack of vanity, they're saying that it supports and even initiates the psychic process. So it's like, well, I want to initiate my psychic abilities. Great. Then how is it that you're bringing in these positive components that will help you activate those psychic abilities, right?
Right.
Because you're again coming from that place of love, service, and unity. So vanity is not unity. I loved that because I thought, oh, again, that's so smart. That's not me. Vanity is not unity. I loved it. So, and again, we're all guilty. Vanity, self-serving, and it can inhibit the psychic development process, something that I've learned the hard way, right? A lot of times, and I think we all do. And I think that's part of the message is, can we avoid those pitfalls from this message from spirit, right? And it can even harm the psychic interactions we have with others. And I think that that's a key thing that you brought up immediately is if we're in a place of vanity and ego, we have a lot of, we have the ability to do harm to others when we're in that wrong mindset.
Right. Anytime you're coming at a reading from a perspective of what am I going to gain from this, you've already failed, basically. Except for the fact that, we do gain knowledge every time we do a reading or something like, or
But that was my question, because we do gain, right?
Right. Okay. So this is why. It's because people need to understand that service to self versus service to others, right? These are the two ways to approach it. If you approach service to others as knowing that when you are giving to others, you are actually giving to yourself. So every time I do a reading for someone, I want to do the best reading that I can possibly do, them with the maximum amount of healing possible. And in turn, I'm going to gain all of this, happiness and joy from doing it.
Right.
I think we forget that part of it. So
it's okay to receive, because you're going to receive, right?
Right.
Like I've never done a reading or a session and not received something as a result of giving, but the focus is on the giving first and the receiving second.
Exactly. So it's about intention. It's always about intention. What are your intentions to become psychic? What are your intentions for this person that you're doing a reading for?
But we're all human, right? We all have an ego. It's like you said, you first go, oh gosh, where did I fail? Let's face it. So, okay, we're going to talk about some of these vanity and self, right? Because we're going to talk about these disempowering things. So fess up, if you will, and then I'll fess up. What was it that you found where your ego kicked in regards? Because you said you analyzed that.
Right. So I was thinking, where am I guilty of it? I think I've channeled a few famous people. So that's kind of like maybe one aspect where I'm like, ooh, I'm super cool because, I channeled these famous people. But yeah, they're still people. And I kind of had to get over that too. I'm not that much cooler than anybody else that channels other famous people. That's a thing. Some people only channel famous people or, stuff like that. So that was part of it. And also I've always kind of been like, okay, well, maybe I'm a little bit scared of my power. Like I didn't want to feel like that. So I've been kind of more self-aware to stay away from that aspect. And because I've seen it from other people in the community where, they kind of use their abilities over people's heads and they're like, I don't like that. So I think seeing it helped me not do some of these things that we're discussing.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess it was just, that was it really. I mean, the famous people, I'm super cool. you know?
Well, and it does happen. And I think anyone who does mediumship will at one point or another encounter someone in spirit that comes through that is semi-famous. It's kind of like going to dinner and a movie star walks in. Let's face it, we're all human. We're all going to go, oh my gosh, look. Whether we're alive or whether they're in spirit or whether they're alive, there's a part of us that goes, oh my gosh, look, it's so and so. So, and we think that it's cool. We get to meet that person. So you're right. There is that part of that. I don't know that I really thought it was cool when I ran into people that would stop by, so much as it made me go, yeah, right. Sure you are.
I know.
But then I listen, I ask for some evidence. I try to validate that evidence. And then I go, okay, but why not? It's like, how many people are really out there on the planet doing mediumship? Truly, how many are really doing it legitimately? And it's like, and then there's all these spirits that want to get messages through. I think in the scheme of things, there's a small number of us based on the population of the planet. Why not come through? Why are we not as worthy as anyone else of connecting with someone because they have a desire to connect? So I get that. I don't think it makes us special unless you feel like, you're like,
but that's kind of what vanity.
They picked me, and I'm like, no, they can pick any medium, right? They can pick any person, person. That's not the point. Yeah.
No, I'm special. That's all there is to it. So, I think the worst part of it is when people are power hungry, and they are trying to impress people. So if, I were to sit there and brag about how many famous people I've channeled and how great I am because I can do that. And then on top of it, say, and I'm the only one that can do that. That's where I have a big problem, because I'm not the only one that can do that. There's lots and lots of mediums out there, and they are all fully capable of channeling any famous person, should that famous person want to come through. So,
and anyone can. That's the point. It doesn't, you don't even, oh, well, I'm not a medium, so I can't do that. No. Spirit connection is available for everyone. That's the whole point. Anybody can have that connection. So, well, so one of the, go ahead. Were you going to say? Oh, no. Okay. So one of the things that came up in, after I did, finish the inspired part, I thought, okay, well, let's talk about these vanity aspects. And there were basically 4. So if you got pen and paper and you want to write these down, I would tell people to kind of write them down. And then were you going to grab pen and paper?
I'm taking notes.
You already made your notes.
I know.
But take them and write them down, because I think that there are things that people can analyze, and that's the really important part. So these things, not only do they disempower others, but they disempower you. They're deactivators for psychic abilities, right? And you can say, oh, well, I'm psychic and I'm like that, and that's fine. Okay, but maybe you're not reaching your highest potential because they're still deactivating you at some level.
Right.
So there's 4 of them. And the first one is what we're going to call self-worth. And we've already touched on this, right? So it's the need to feel special, the need to feel chosen. We consider ourselves gifted or called. We're worthy, we're unique, we're attention seeking. Okay.
Right.
And this can happen in any field, right? It comes from a sense of low self-worth. We need to feel special. We need to feel recognized. We need to have attention. And so this is a self-worth issue. And, I agree. And I looked at some of this and I went, okay, I do want to feel special. Who doesn't want to feel special, right? It's a human need. Okay. Yeah. I think we all are special. I think there's that point where's that healthy balance, right? We are special. We are unique. We are chosen. We are called. But that doesn't put us above anyone else. That just makes us different from everyone else. Does that make sense?
So I had an interesting analogy pop in about that, where
perfect.
It's like, why does any psychic person feel the need to think that they're extra super special? Right. It's because, well, I can do, what other people can't do, right? Right. Well, but technically other people can do that, and that's not necessarily true. But let's say this. So it's like hair or something flowing around. Let's say that I go to a mechanic, for example. I don't know anything about how to fix a car. Do you think that mechanic thinks that he's super just better than me because
exactly,
I don't know how to fix a car? No, but that's a special skill
that's right,
that person has that I need because my car is busted. So similarly,
and you could develop that skill if you wanted to.
I could.
I have zero interest in doing it, but you could if you wanted to. You just choose not to.
And so that's the thing about with psychic. What is the word I'm looking for?
Well, the vanity, but
well, no,
we're talking about self-worth.
We're
talking about self-worth. Yeah.
Right. But the other thing about that is, so for anyone who says I'm better than them because, you know, they're psychic, the psychic development part is just like that. You could take a class, you could become psychic because everybody has it. Just like I can take a class and become a mechanic if I want.
Exactly.
I might not be good at it, but
or a good artist or a good singer or a good dancer or and I think that we should honor our uniqueness. We should feel self-love, but there's a balance between that self-worth and that self-love where we're taking it to that negative aspect and we're feeling, well, you hear psychics say I'm naturally gifted, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that a lot of them refer to that natural gift as going, it's just a natural talent. But we need to be careful that people don't perceive, and we ourselves don't perceive ourselves as somehow chosen by spirit, but you haven't been. And that's just not the case. So again, it's just a disempowering aspect, and it's the number one, and it's self-worth. And if for me, I have not had a lot of self-love in my life. I've had to work on that. I've had to grow into that. I've had to recognize that it's okay to be proud of my strengths, but not to hold them over other people, because then it becomes a lack of self-worth that's causing that. And that's disempowering. And it's disempowering in our connections to others, not to mention it causes harm, as you've already said, right?
Right.
Because if I think I'm special, I'm chosen, and I'm gifted, and I'm not encouraging you to develop your own psychic connections or your own connections to spirit because you think somehow you have to be special or chosen, I am disempowering you.
Exactly.
And that's harmful.
Yeah.
So self-worth is number one for vanity. So the number two was what they called self-righteousness, right? Or self-righteous. And that means I need to be right. I need to be accurate. I'm infallible. I'm perfect, superior, and above reproach, right? So that's exactly right. This self-righteousness. No, I know I'm right. You have to believe me because I'm the psychic, or, this inability to be wrong, because let's face it, all of these things, we get this self-righteous attitude that we don't want to be corrected. It's very disempowering. We have to be more humble, I think, is the opposite of that self-righteousness.
Right. Definitely. One thing, if a psychic person says I'm never wrong, and that's a big red flag, big, huge red flag. I can always be wrong. And I have been wrong many times. Yeah. I think that's hard for people to admit just on the whole, about anything. They don't want to be wrong. And
it's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, that's ego again.
It is. Yeah. And the superior came in there too. That kind of moves with the self-worth, but the self-righteousness.
Right. And I think self-worth is important. If you don't have the self-worth, then when you see somebody else that is psychic, you're going to be jealous. And that creates the disempowering vibration that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. The self-righteousness, that's kind of what that leads to, is where you're like, okay, well, now I'm overcompensating. Right. So it's like you either undercompensating or now you're overcompensating with I'm so self-righteous and wonderful and nobody else compares to me, blah, 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 blah.
And I think, it's important to say we should be confident enough in our abilities to go, and I've had this happen where, and it's tough, right? It's tough, especially if you're developing, where I was getting something and the lady, the sitter was going, no. And I'm like, I wanted to honor her. And I said, okay, it doesn't fit for you, right? I got it. Right. It doesn't fit for you, but I know what I'm getting. And I'm telling you, this is it. And I said, I'm sorry, we're not placing it. I said, either I am wrong or I'm just not understanding it. So she goes, I have a roommate. She goes, do you think it could be for her? And I said, I really don't know. I said, and as a psychic, you would think, okay, I should know, right? Somebody up there tell me, why am I
You're supposed
getting
to know
I don't know.
everything. You're psychic.
So you would think, okay, well, how come we don't know everything, right? It's like, how come I don't have that answer? But it just wasn't fitting, and I knew it wasn't, but I knew that what I was getting was coming from the real source. That
Right.
takes a degree of confidence, but at the same time, you have to be really careful to not undermine yourself, right?
Right.
Because you do have to have a healthy sense of confidence in your abilities, but you don't want to take it so far to say, she's just wrong. So anyway, I was willing to be vulnerable with her, not self-righteous, vulnerable, and say, gosh, I really know I'm getting this. So she got up and she goes, let me go get my roommate. And as she got up and she left the room, all of a sudden the spirit goes, it's my daughter, it's my daughter, my daughter. She gave me a piece of evidence. The daughter comes into the room and I start going through everything. And it's hit.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was all awesome for the roommate.
Right.
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't admit that we're wrong, but at the same time, we need to have that confidence level in ourselves where we can say, I know when I'm getting it. I know it's a signal. Maybe I'm not placing it right. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, because it's not a perfect science, unfortunately. And people who don't understand it think that. So anyway, I'm not trying to say don't be confident.
Well, there's a difference. There's a fine line between being confident
and being self-righteous, right?
Which is really great when you're confident, especially in this work, because it takes time to build your confidence. Mm-hmm. But there is a difference between being confident and being arrogant. And arrogant
Good point. That's a great word. Yes.
Yeah, it's super not attractive.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And that arrogance can come in both the self-worth and the self-righteousness. So anyway, so we talked about there's going to be 4 disempowering factors. We've talked about self-worth. We've talked about self-righteousness. Notice the word self is in all 4 of these. And the next one is self-exploration. And we kind of have to talk about that a little bit, because if you think of self-exploration as disempowering, how is it disempowering? Because it's also empowering to some degree, right? Because we already heard that we can explore psychic awareness for our own growth and personal. But when we have a personal agenda, when we have our personal demands and our personal desires, these are disempowering, because we are interested in doing something for ourselves. We get rid of that unity, right?
Right.
So here's an example. Sitter comes to you for a reading. You don't care about the fact that they just lost their child. You do, but what you're really interested in is, well, I need to know that I'm able to do this for myself. And I want this piece of evidence and that piece of evidence and that piece of evidence. And I'm going to tell them this, and this. We're controlling that session.
Right.
We have an agenda for ourselves. We're going to make the connection happen the way we want it. It's going to happen in our desire and our time. And we're not really being sensitive to the spirit or to the sitter.
And I would say, watch how fast spirit just shuts down that reading.
You betcha. That's the whole point. It's a deactivator. Yeah. So when I heard the word self-exploration as a vanity and a deactivator, I think there's that fine line there. When you're asking yourself, why are you, this touches a little bit on what you said. Why do you want to be psychic? Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Is it just because you think it's cool and you want to, and this is where I've been guilty. It was really important for me to have evidence of life after death. I needed it for me. For me, this was where my ego came in. Because I've struggled with the science, having faith. You know that. You've been there for me through a lot of those struggles, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had a personal agenda. And I had to really learn how to get out of that personal agenda and be in my sitter's space, be in my spirit's space, and honor them first. Put my agenda aside. And interestingly enough, spirit serves me because they already know what I need.
Right.
But when I came at it from the other way first, my agenda first, my desires first, my structuring first, my power level was down here.
Right.
Until I figured that out. And then my power level and my readings got so much better. So does that make sense when we hear self-exploration? Is there an example that comes up for you on that?
I'm trying to think. I guess when I first was going through my opening, I did kind of question that. It's like, well, why do you want to be psychic? Is it just so that you can show off to your friends? Actually, no, I'd rather have telekinesis if I want to show off in front of my friends. That's not happening right now. No, and what I heard was with great power comes great responsibility. And so unless you're willing to take on this responsibility of having this kind of gift, maybe you should think twice, because it's not going to serve others, and then it won't serve you. So if it's not serving others, it's not serving you at the same time.
Right. Very true. Yeah. It is a huge responsibility. Yeah. So if you're interested in looking at these, so we've got self-worth, self-righteous, and self-exploration. And again, I think it's okay to want to explore and to get answers, because we're all doing it, right? I love this work because of what I learned from it. We have to be careful that we're not putting that agenda above the unifying agenda, the empowering, the activating factors. Those things will naturally follow and will naturally happen. And it's okay to ask for those, but they can't be your primary agenda.
Right.
All right. So the fourth one in Vanity is what we call self-service. And a lot of these kind of overlap. But again, these were just the ones that Spirit gave me. So self-service says, pay me and I'll help you, but I won't help you until you pay me.
Right.
That's horrible. There's nothing wrong with earning a living with what you do. And that's a whole nother discussion that I'm very passionate about, but you have to do what's right for you. But if I have a message for someone and I'm not going to help you unless you're going to pay me, that's very self-serving. You are not using your God-given gifts to just help somebody, because that's what's more important. It's the service, not the self-service, the service. Self-gratification, self-accumulation, and these things can lead to psychic abuse and misuse. And I know that, you talked earlier about abuses in the psychic community.
Right. One thing that came to mind is kind of touching on what you said about, well, give me money or I'm not going to give you a reading, or, maybe withholding information for some kind of return. It's like, I don't know. I can't relate. I just can't. I cannot relate.
Oh, no. Me either.
I have never gotten a piece of information that I haven't given to somebody because it's like literally bursting out of me. I'm not going to sit there and be like, hey, by the way, you owe me $100 now, and I think that I've seen a lot of people in the community use that, where I don't know if you've ever received them before, but people will like send out these little emails and they'll be like, oh, because maybe you bought something off a horoscope page or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we just did this reading for you. And it says that, you're going to have some kind of weird hardship. And they start putting this like fear into it.
Absolutely.
To make you try to buy a trinket or a reading or whatever, because exactly now they've put this like seed of fear into your mind.
Yes.
That you need them, or you could potentially have a horrible rest of your life.
Absolutely. Look at how disempowering that is. That's completely unethical. And that's what they mean by psychic abuse and misuse. Or if you go to, I was at a psychic fair one time early on. I really don't do those anymore. I'm not a fan, but, and someone said, oh, you've got this negative spirit that's kind of hanging around you, or this negative attachment or something, if you want to come see me, I can help you with that, and it's like, well, first of all,
only
that's a whole another video too, but it's like,
yeah.
Why would you even tell someone that and then tell them I'll pay you? It just gets under my skin. It's so unethical in every way. And it's just self-serving. Again, nothing wrong with earning a living. Dancers earn livings, singers earn living, doctors earn living, bankers earn livings, psychics and mediums can earn livings. There's nothing wrong with it. But we all know we can earn our living ethically or unethically.
Right.
Period. It's just not there. So you can see how this is a deactivator. So when you're evaluating these 4 things, self-worth, self-righteousness, self-exploration, and self-service, ask yourself, am I self-serving? And to some degree, I have always wanted to use this ability to be able to to earn a living, in the sense that, because I had chronic fatigue, I wasn't able to hold a regular job. I need to be able to be in control of my schedule. I mean, I haven't worked in years. And so for me, and I know for you as well, we would like to be compensated for our time and our skills. Who wouldn't? Who doesn't want to be able to do the things that they love in life? Right?
Right.
As you said, if I'm sitting with my lovely hairdresser who does such a wonderful job with my hair, and her grandmother comes through, I'm going to tell her.
Right.
Why would, oh, well, you can come see me. Your grandma's here. No.
Yeah.
That's
well,
an
your grandma,
awful thing to say.
Yeah, your grandma just stepped through, but if you'd like to hear from her, go ahead and book an appointment with me. And no, I don't.
Or I'll be like, if I'll give her a little something as much as I can. And I'll say it because it's also not a private environment in a salon, right? It's like, if you want to connect, just let me know, and I'll connect for you. There's no charge, no obligation, right?
Right.
And I think when you're in this place of you're not serving yourself, you're allowing that psychic information to come through, because spirit knows you're going to be responsible. You use the word, you're going to be responsible with it, right?
That's just it. With great power comes great responsibility. That sunk in real heavy for me. I was like, oh, do I really want to do this?
That's been a big one. You are right. For me too. Yeah,
I had to question it a little bit. I was like, I don't know. I don't like responsibility.
It is a responsibility, and it's especially when you're connecting with people's departed loved ones. They're dealing with grief. It is an enormous responsibility. I get health stuff for people. Huge responsibility. You're dealing with people's lives,
right?
And for some people,
they get healing, definitely.
Yeah.
And I kind of struggle with that aspect. It's like, I want to just heal people, but you still have to have permission. Like, damn it.
Yeah, it's a convoluted thing. But right? I think too, the point is I know that you're very ethical, and I work to be very ethical. And these are all very ethical issues. And so if you're dealing with a medium or a psychic, let's say you're a sitter and you're not trying to develop yourself, these are even target points for you to look at. How is that medium or psychic coming off to you? Are they exhibiting all kinds of signs that it's about them, and that are they not being reasonable? So these are things that can, even if they're good at what they do, they're kind of some warning signs that you want to be careful there, because they may not be handling things as ethically as possible.
Yeah, definitely a big red flag is when they try to scare you into something that you have to buy. I think that's,
or telling you or disempowering you in any way, to making you think that you cannot do the same thing that you're doing or I'm doing. Sure, your strength might be somewhere else. Maybe you're great at, you do, or, like to do astral clairvoyance, remote viewing. Those are things that, forget it. That's great. That's cool that you do that. But I'm going to have my own psychic skill set. So the point is we all will have our unique ways in that we connect, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And so in that way, you do get to feel special. And so there's nothing wrong with,
absolutely.
We were talking about before, it was being confident in what you're doing.
Loving your skill set. You should love your skill set.
Right. But
not to the point that it disempowers someone else.
Right. And thinking that you're better than someone else for it. Because I do believe that we all have this intuition that can be expanded upon.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, maybe I've honed my skills, and I can be proud and confident about that, but I'm not better than anybody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we can master our craft, right? I mean, I go to see teachers who've mastered their craft. I don't think that makes them better in the sense that they're superior. I do think they've applied themselves. I do give them
Right.
credit for being so good at what they do, but I don't let that undermine me because I go, I'm going to be really good at something someday too, right? I just have to figure out what that is and then keep moving in that direction. So that's about you owning your power and coming from a healthy place. So those were basically the 4 disempowering characteristics. So if you're watching the show, you've got this inspired message from spirit, which is loaded with information. You've got these 4 disempowering and deactivators for your psychic abilities that deal with vanity, right? That deal with self. They all begin with the self. So what are the activators? We want to close the show off. What are the positive sides of things, right? And so how can we activate our abilities and move into a place of connection? Because when we are connected, we are empowering others, we're empowering ourselves. And this happens through cooperation and through co-creation, right? This is what psychic is all about. We need to be in that state of mind, right?
Right.
So there's 3 activators, and we've kind of already touched on some of these. But the first one is service, right? We've already talked about that. We are helping others to find their uniqueness, their self-worth, their purpose, their direction, right? We are giving service to others with this ability. That immediately sets you up for psychic information to come in because you're in the right intention,
Right.
in the right mindset.
Here's a good example of that. So
perfect.
Typically when we do cases for people, a lot of the people are psychic. They're attracting this kind of activity to their house or themselves. And so, it becomes more like a coaching now where I have to identify these people's abilities and say, okay, you're definitely an empath and you're definitely clairvoyant and you're definitely picking up on all this stuff. And here is how to empower yourself. Yay. God, I get so happy for people that listen to what I say, they apply the knowledge, and then they're like, oh my God, all this cool stuff. And, they're starting to get their information, they're connecting with their guides, they're receiving all these signs, they don't have any activity, they know how to keep their space clear, and they are empowered. And that makes me feel like $1,000,000.
Sure.
So,
but you're giving service. And so that activates your abilities too. That makes you able to better connect and better to give information. And spirit's going to support that, right? Psychic information is going to support unity, cooperation, because you're in a place of providing service. Right. And so so ask yourself, am I giving service and how am I doing that? It's okay that we all do it differently. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're still in that overall mindset of helping people find their uniqueness, helping people find their self-worth, their purpose, and or what direction they need to go in. That's what I love doing about my readings is, and I tell people, I'm not here to solve your problems. I'm here to point out.
You are.
What's that?
They think you are.
Well, and that's a misnomer about psychic abilities, which is why we're talking about this. It's really designed to, go back and read the paragraph from Spirit to give you insights. And that leads us to the second point of empowering and activating. And this is what I love about my readings, because yes, I'm serving people, but I love giving people awareness. So that's point and activator number 2, awareness. Service number 1, awareness number 2. We're giving people insights for growth, giving them insights for healing, giving them insights for problem solving and for personal development. Psychics do not tell you what to do. They should not. They never should not, which is why we've talked about the issues of predicting and telling. You're in control, right? We're not here to diagnose. We're here to give you information. We're here to help.
You know what? That's actually a really great point that I'm about to interrupt you on.
You go.
Your guides are so the same way.
Absolutely. Okay? That's right.
And they will not tell you what to do.
So why would you expect the psychics to do that? Hello, your guides don't do it. Don't come think I'm going to do it for you.
Right. So what they do though, is they give you insight and awareness about your situation and how to fix solving,
personal development.
So, So, and that applies with a lot of things, but psychics in particular, they should never tell you this is what you have to do. And in fact, if it's some kind of future thing, I mean, I would definitely take it with a grain of salt. Just saying.
We talked
But
about that. So for anybody that's curious about that conversation, we do have a video already on our page that you can look at that's about, you know, the pros and cons of predicting.
well,
So,
and anything that's messing with your free will, right? So it's like, or scaring you into changing a decision that you would have maybe not necessarily
Right.
made due to fear.
Right.
That's also equally important. So,
and unfortunately, so many people have this misnomer of what it means to be psychic or to be a medium is expect that if they have this idea that it's going to be a certain way, that we're going to solve your problems. Is it a good move for me to go to California? I mean, I remember listening to you were on a radio show, you were being interviewed and somebody asked you about, is it a good decision? And I'm like, I would immediately go, I'm not ethically going to say that.
yeah. Well, you know what?
I can point out pros and cons.
I kind of remember that lady,
Mhm.
and I was like, I mean, I had all good feels for her. So, I mean, I really hope, I hope she gets her house and that new job, and you know, and I don't know. It's like sometimes you do have to trust yourself, like we talked about earlier, about the
Sure.
information that you're getting. I have gotten future information that did come true.
Oh,
So,
no, me too. But so I think you're right. I mean, you know, and again, I don't want to get off on a tangent too much, but because we did discuss that before, there are
right.
times when something comes through from spirit and I'm just like, okay, and I'll tell people, I'm not into predicting. I'm not a fan of it, but I'm being told this because sometimes they're warnings, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
they're be on the lookout for, be extra alert when this situation happens, or
Mhm.
when this event occurs, it's important. And I get that from my guides from time to time. They're not predicting though. They're kind of saying when this situation happens, pay attention.
Yes.
Right? So there's a
Yep.
little bit of a difference between a warning.
I know I've gotten like heads up, you know, this is
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
happen, or
So it is kind of future, but you're still not telling somebody, you know, I remember once a gal, she was curious about, you know, I don't know if I need to sell my home or not. What do you think? That's a prediction. You're asking me to make a decision for you. And of course, I
yeah,
immediately stop the session. I clarify free will and all that other kind of stuff. And I said, what I will do for you is I will talk about the potentials of both decisions.
right. That way they can make the
That
decision
way
for
they,
themselves.
so then I go, okay, so
Yeah,
here's the energy I feel in selling the home. Here's the challenges you're going to face. Here's the things that would be beneficial. Here's the challenges and the benefits in staying where you are.
right.
And then that way she has information, because what did we just learn in point number 2 for empowering? Insights for growth, healing, problem solving, and personal
Right.
development. So
Mhm.
if I can give you potentials for either one of those, the power now comes back to you. I've just given you additional awareness that will help you make those decisions.
Right. I'd like to make it clear too that just because we're psychic doesn't mean we know everything. Like literally,
Of course.
I mean, I feel like I have my own intuition, yes, but there are still times where I'm like, Carol, I need advice, you know. So I
Me
mean,
too, of course, because we become enmeshed in our own personal stuff and we can't see
right.
clearly.
So just saying.
Yeah.
Psychics don't know everything.
Yeah. So we did kind of tangent there, but I think those were really good examples of how we want to stay in these empowerment aspects when it comes to our psychic abilities. Service was number 1 and awareness was number 2. And then the third one, which was really interesting that they gave, and this is the last one in the empowering and activators, is support, right? And so what is support? Listening, caring, understanding, encouraging, loving, and respecting, right? We can give all the problem solving and in the world, but support is an emotional part, right? Service
Right.
is something we give, awareness is something we give, and support is something we give. So when we are in these positive, supportive states for our sitters, when we care, when we are aware of their grief, right? We are not in vanity anymore. We're not in ego. We are in a place of unity. We feel that compassion. We feel that care. We feel that respect. We all know this creates an open channel where psychic information can flow back and forth freely because you now have the other person's best intention in mind. These are activators for psychic abilities, and they're going to bring you from this lower level to this higher level.
Right. So I guess a good example of that is like when your friends come up to you and say, I need help. And then you kind of get thrown into that support mode of, well, how can I help this person? And then what do they need to know? And
that's right.
And then you just start to get the information. So,
yeah. Yep. And that is really, truly, and I found that to be an interesting tip that I learned probably a couple of years ago was before I get on a Zoom call with a sitter, I really sit there and I care about them. That doesn't mean I have to work myself up to it, but I mean, I really don't go, okay, I'm going to do good and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I don't have my self-righteousness on. I don't have my self-agenda on. I'm very focused on the service, the awareness, and then going, I love this person. This person is seeing me for a reason. You're right. It's responsibility again, isn't it? How can I really care? I get into that emotional state of caring.
Mm-hmm. It can be heavy. That's why I don't like, man, I really hate missing people's cases because whenever one comes across and then I'm like, it's heavy. I feel like it's important. There's this just like great weight that comes with it about being right, about being accurate and letting people down if I can't, you know.
So but that's kind of deactivators. I mean, those are very.
I know, but that's like it becomes heavy if it's like too much, you know. I have to take a step back, a little bit, and be like, okay, well, I don't know. I have to separate from the emotion a little bit, otherwise, I feel like I get weighed down with it. So.
Well, and and that's a good point, especially for people that are highly empathic. You can get caught up in that. But if you're coming from that place of resolution rather than getting trapped in their emotional baggage,
it's pressure. I don't know. There feels like it's pressure. Maybe that's not the best example, but
no, I think you bring a good point because darn well the pressure gets to me as well. It is an enormous amount of responsibility, especially if someone is paying you for a service. The pressure can be very enormous to perform, right? And those are deactivators, though. Those put us back in that place of vanity.
Right.
They put us back in that place of self. So that's the key, I think, when we get into those things of pressure, feeling the weight, shift yourself back into those activators of, nope, I'm here to be of service, to provide awareness, and to give them that emotional support that I can. That doesn't mean you buy into their emotions, right? Because then you're not providing support anymore. Then you're in their emotional state, and that's not okay. But so I didn't mean to say own their grief or own their, but it's look at them as a loved one.
It's not so much about their, well, it is. It's hard for me straight up because I am empathic, but the same aspect comes with when someone wants to connect with a dead family member, and maybe it's a particular one, and now there's pressure to get this particular person to come through and to be accurate. So I don't know.
Well, we put that pressure on ourselves, and so that becomes one of those vanity aspects. We all have them. And I think that's the point that maybe we can kind of sum up with is that
maybe that is my vanity. I don't like being wrong. Definitely don't like
it. It is a vanity issue. I mean, I'm going to call you out and you can call me out because I do the same thing too. I hate being wrong. I hate it.
For sure.
And that is us feeling that, it's our agenda again, right? And so we are all guilty of it. I'm not saying that I don't have vanity issues, right? The whole point of this discussion that Spirit wanted us to have wasn't to say, I'm better. I don't experience these things. I've experienced all of these things and I still struggle with some of them. They're insights for listeners to evaluate, to take the paragraph from Spirit, to take the 4 vanity aspects, they're deactivators, and the 3 activators, and find ways that you can heal the deactivating aspects in your life and move into those activators. Those are going to get your psychic abilities working and give you greater insight, greater connection, greater clarity for yourself and for others. That's
Right.
all Spirit was trying to say here. Yeah.
Well, I think a good way to just cap that is by saying, you know, service to others versus service to self. I used to work for this guy that was in the restaurant equipment business, and he was a big salesman. And he told me one day, he was like, every time a customer comes through that door, you need to be thinking about how much money you can make off of them. And I was like, really? Because when a customer walks through the door, usually I think to myself, how can I help this person? Right? That's usually what customer service is about.
Right.
And I think in that moment is where I realized this isn't a good place for me. And, you know, let's move on. But the same concept applies to anything that we do for people. So, or even in life, just how can I make the most and help this person to the fullest capacity? And you will be rewarded. That's the whole thing. I mean, it's service to self is service to others.
You mean service to others is service to self? You said it backwards.
Service to others is
service to self.
Yeah,
I knew what you meant.
Today my words are like.
I knew what you meant.
It's all good. So yeah, we've been talking about it.
So that's really basically it. So I hope that everybody that's watched today, and I don't want to cut you off if you have any last thoughts about it, but I thought this was an outstanding lesson from Spirit with the channeled paragraph, the 4 aspects of self-evaluation for deactivators, and then the 3 activating steps. So I hope that people found that of value. So anything else before we close up?
No, I should probably quit while I'm ahead.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I know the show went a little long, and you can always watch or listen to it in pieces. But again, just some great information for people to look at there and to get their own abilities moving forward. So again, you can reach us. Got show notes down below, links on how you can reach out to all of us. And anything new going on with you lately? Do you have anything coming up, or you've been doing a lot of cases?
It's been a busy month, but I'm gonna get my next blog up, and that's about it.
Gotcha.
Although, that's about it. We'll make other announcements closer to time.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and you know how to get a hold of us below. So anyway, all right. Thanks for joining Project Perspectives. Bye-bye.
Bye.